So let's talk about the sermon. Here's the title. Here's the title of this sermon. It's titled Embracing Our Failures. Fun topic. This being this first Sunday, we were supposed to be in the building. I was not slated to preach, but then when we bumped it back, I took my week. Robert asked if I wanted to teach what I taught at our conference and a breakout. This is a section that I teach on leadership, and then we're just applying it to life, regular failures, and everyday living. And so here's the question I want to start with. When you think of failure, what do you think of? When failure is at your front door, how do you handle it? Is it, I'm afraid of failure and I avoid it at all cost? Or is it failure? It's just kind of who I am. April 7th, 2025, NCAA National Championship game between University of Houston and University of Florida. And you Longhorns, I am not talking about football today with Florida and UT. I'm talking about U of H, Florida basketball. I will not bring up yesterday. I will not talk about it. 29-21. That's all I'm going to say about yesterday. Anybody remember how that game ended? U of H and Florida National Championship this year? Anybody remember it? This is where you can say it out loud. Anybody remember? Show of hands. Florida won. Last two plays of the game. Last two plays of the game, U of H did not get a shot off. Like, you're down by 2. You have one job. Get a shot off. All-American point guard jumped up, dropped the ball, and then just guarded everybody from it. Smart play. That's how the game ended. And after the game, Kelvin Sampson, U of H coach, he said this: the first step on the ladder of success is always failure. Immature people don't understand that there's going to be failure. Growth starts when you stop avoiding failure and you start learning from it. Here's what Kelvin could have said. Kelvin, head coach, U of H basketball, he could have said, this was absolutely not a failure. Only 2 teams got this far. We made it to the national championship game. And that would have been a true statement. It would have been right. And if he did, he would have lost the chance at the growth that comes from honesty. The fruit from looking at what really happened and calling it what it really was. Kelvin Sampson knows this, that in sports and in life, failure is an inescapable reality and we cannot avoid it. You will not be able to avoid it. You can either run from it or you can grow from it, and the choice is yours. But we don't have to look just at sports to see it. We can look at the Bible. A cursory glance at the Bible and you see failure all around. Satan, Lucifer, leading the angelic rebellion, sin distorting our attention and motives. Old Testament, Saul, Moses, Aaron, David, Solomon, Eli, Jeroboam, Ahab, Uzziah. New Testament, Peter, James, disciples at Gethsemane, Ananias and Sapphira. 1 Corinthians, 2 Corinthians, Galatians, Philippians, Colossians, all written in part due to leadership failures. But we don't also have to look at the Bible, do we? I know this. There are some of us here right now, sitting in these chairs, who are living with wounds from the failures of others. Some of you are sitting here right now, and you have real wounds from the failures of pastors who have gone before. You have real wounds from the failures of your mother or your father. And I know I've told you guys this before, but I could give you names of people in Houston right now who would say to you, You have no idea the wounds I'm carrying from Brandon. And they would be real. They would not be phantom. Matt Chandler, who pastored a church in Dallas, was in Houston teaching at something just before I moved here, and he said he said this: they don't teach you in seminary that leadership mistakes live on in the wounds of others. But there are 4 or 5 people who wouldn't even look at me because of the leadership mistakes I've made. Sometimes they're macro, sometimes they're micro. And as we dive in, I want to disclaimer something that I'm using the language of mistake and failure interchangeably. They're not synonyms. That failure happens when repeated mistakes get ignored, right? A failure of a marriage doesn't happen overnight. It happens when small issues get ignored and small issues eventually compound and become big issues. But failure is inescapable. And here's what I think the secret sauce is to life and maturity. I think the secret sauce to growth isn't to just ask what. It isn't to avoid it and pretend like it's not real. I think the secret sauce is to get underneath the what and ask why. Why did this happen? And to get to the root of why, it takes self-awareness. It takes knowing ourselves. And no better place in the Bible, that may not be a true statement. A great place in the Bible to dive into self-awareness, Psalm 139. So Psalm 139, here's what we're going to see regarding self-awareness. The starting point, the courageous confrontation, and the desperate plea. Okay? Starting point, courageous confrontation, the desperate plea. Here's the starting point. Verse 23. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Search me, O God, and know my heart. What does search and know mean? Well, the word search, it has this connotation of to examine, to investigate, to explore. It's why in Lamentations 3:40, it says, let us test and examine our ways. Same word. Let's examine. And when paired with the word know, it's examine to understand. Examine me, O God. Examine me to understand. God, examine and understand my heart. Our hearts being the source of our loves, our motives, our desires, what drives us. What sits at the core of who you are, who I am. It's the root of our worship, and it's the root of our idolatries. What motivates us, what drives us. He's asking God to examine, to unearth what motivates him, his loves. But why, oh God? Why, oh God, examine me? Why? Examine me, oh God, and know my heart. Here's why. Because the starting point for true Christian self-awareness, it is not what the latest pop psychologist has to say. It is not what the latest AI generates when you say, I have this problem, this problem, this problem. Why is it, oh Gemini? The starting point isn't even what you think of you. That's right. The starting point is, what does God think of you? John Calvin, who I'm so deeply grateful for, said this, that man never achieves a clear knowledge of himself unless he has first looked upon God's face and then descends to scrutinize himself. On your worst day, on your most embarrassing day, on that day that if we said, hey, write down what you are most ashamed of, the thing that you would beg for no one to know about you, write it down, and then we're all going to pass it to the person to the left and let them read it. That thing that you couldn't fathom that person knowing about you. On that day, in that moment, what the Father thinks of you is my beloved son, my beloved daughter. For everyone, every one of us here whose life has intersected with Christ, and you have been united to Jesus, the resurrected Son, every single one of you on your absolute worst day, what the Father thinks of you is my beloved. My beloved son. Yes, I know, my beloved daughter. The starting point is what God thinks of you, and here's why that matters. Having this as your starting point, when failure comes into your life, when failure shows up, it's going to guard you from one of two extremes. Extreme one, despair. Despair. I can't see myself. I can't take it. And listen, I have had friends, people I knew well, take their own life because of this. Because when failure showed up and their life spiraled, they sunk so deep into despair because their identity had become so wrapped up in what I do, how other people see me, that they couldn't see a way out and took their own life. So it protects you from despair. 2, it protects you from a youthful naivete. From a youthful naivete. The side of you that says, I can only look at what's good in me. And I ignore the parts of me that I know are broken and that I know are hurting other people. I can only just look at the parts of me that I like. It's what 13-year-olds do. And seeing yourself first, your starting point being, what does God think of me? It frees us up to be honest with ourselves about ourselves. If this were a breakout session at a conference, I would say, let's brainstorm something together. Here's what I would say, let's brainstorm. I would say, let's talk about why is it so hard for us to be honest with ourselves about ourselves? Why is it so hard? Why is it so hard to look in the mirror and be honest with ourselves about ourselves? I heard this image said this way. Let me give a physical illustration of what I'm talking about. You have a full-size mirror in your home. Here's what none of us do. None of us walk up to the mirror and just stand there and look at ourselves. We approach the mirror and we angle ourselves and we make sure we like what we see. And if we don't, we keep angling a little more and a little more. Do we not? When we did brainstorm, here's the 2 common thread answers. 1, I'm afraid of the mirror. It's not I just don't like it. It's that I'm afraid of it. I'm afraid of seeing me as I am. Another was, I'm afraid the people around me will be right. I'm afraid that they will be right. What's yours? What's your answer to, why is it so hard to see myself as I really am? The starting point to true self-awareness is knowing what God thinks of you. Frees us up to be honest with ourselves about ourselves, which takes us to the ability to engage the courageous question, and I do not know why my voice cracked just there. The courageous question of the psalmist. Let's keep reading part B, verse 23. Try me and know my thoughts. Okay. Try me has some nuance that we need to unpack a little bit to see, and I will be quick, I promise. It's a word that is, again, it's kind of used for examine, but it's examine and then it's prove and it's vindicate, often in public. Right? So in the Psalms, you'll find this word getting used in context where the psalmist is being attacked by outsiders, and the psalmist is saying, vindicate me, O God. In the presence of my enemies, vindicate me. Make it public. Make it visible to all that I have been vindicated. And when you pair it again with know, to know my thoughts, I think this is what the psalmist is trying to communicate. I think he's trying to communicate this. Make them known to me. Make the thoughts of my heart visible to me. And where this gets so incredibly courageous is when we know what kind of thoughts the psalmist is talking about. That these are not thoughts generally or generically the word for thoughts. It's the word for disquieting thoughts, to quote the Hebrew dictionary. Here's how it defines this word. These are the troubled thoughts, the anxious thoughts, the processing of information which causes distress and anxiety to one's mind and heart. The psalmist is saying this. Can y'all still hear me back there? We good? Okay. The psalmist is saying, God, the thoughts that cause anxiety in me, that disquiet my soul, I want to see them. I want you to show them to me. And you want to talk about courage? I mean, it takes courage to pray this, to say this. God, I want to see. I want to see what disquiets my soul. I want to see the painful parts of me as I really am, not as I wish I was. And the psalmist right here is absolutely punching the fall in the mouth. The heart of the fall. I don't want to see me. I can't see me. I'm hiding from me. I'm hiding from everyone. And here's the psalmist going, not me. Not me. I'm going to punch the fall back by saying, oh God, show me as I really am. This is a courageous confrontation. This is not fig leaves. This is, Father, uncover me. When you sit honestly before the Lord, let me say it this way. Every week, we gather together. And every week, we have this moment where we say, we're going to stop, we're going to read a prayer of confession, we're going to give you a few moments to pray and confess honestly before the Lord. It takes courage to not just sit there, empty-minded, waiting on somebody to start talking again. It takes courage to go, okay, Lord, I want to confess me as I really am. It takes courage to say it to God and to anyone else. When you do, you are joining the psalmist and punching the fall back in the mouth. Honesty with yourself about yourself takes courage. And if you have the courage to look yourself in the mirror honestly, to look and say, that thing that I'm prone to shame because of, that thing I'm prone to hide or fear or anxiety because of, I'm not running from that thing. It takes courage. And when you have the courage of the psalmist, you can then make his desperate plea with him. So 23 into 24, search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts, and see if there be any grievous way in me. Any grievous way. Listen to this from the psalmist. Try me, know me. See if there be any grievous way in me. Anything in me that grieves you. Anything that brings anger or mental anguish or offense. Is there anything in me that grieves you or hurts others? That's what the psalmist is asking. If there is, show it to me. Show me what grieves you and hurts others. And I call this a desperate plea because this verse is just full of imperatives. It is imperative. It's imperative, Lord God, it's imperative that I see if there's anything in me that grieves you and hurts others. Search me, know me, test me. If I could bring this to modern language and translate it, paraphrase it, I would say it like this. Is there anything in my heart that if I'm unaware, even if unintentionally, will hurt the people around me? I'm going to say that one again, and I'm going to say it slowly. Is there anything in me, anything in my heart, that even if unintentionally, that if I'm unaware of it, it's going to hurt the people around me? And by doing so, grieve you. Here's a secret sauce to growth and maturity. It's being willing to make this plea. It's having the courage of the psalmist, having the psalmist's starting points, and being willing to make this plea. And it forces the question, are you willing to ask it? If this were a leadership breakout session, I'd have my top 10 list of leadership failures. Not of other people, of mine. I would walk through them. This is not that, and so I'm still going to give you a list, but I'm going to give you my top 5. My top 5 personal failures as a person, Christian, brother, friend, husband, pastor. Here's my top 5. I ran these by Amanda yesterday. She said, I've got a lot more if you want to put them on there. She didn't say that. She said, I've got a few more. I'm kidding. She didn't say that either. Here's my top 5. I think these are my top 5. Not making people feel heard, especially when we disagreed. I like dialogue. I like debate. I like to wrestle right up until the moment I make a decision on what is right. Why? Lacked empathy, understanding, unwillingness to try to understand why other people feel and think the way that they do. And if you've ever been on the receiving end of just not feeling heard over and over and over, it's dehumanizing. And it hurts. And it creates wounds that last. Number 1, not making people feel heard, especially when we disagree. Number 2, not engaging in conflict in healthy ways. Somewhere along the lines, I bought a lie. I bought into a lie that the presence of conflict equaled a breakdown in relationship and a failure of leadership. And neither one are true. The truth is that the research will say that there is no such thing as a healthy relationship that doesn't have conflict present. Or that there's no such thing as a healthy team that doesn't have conflict. Conflict will always happen when two people, broken in their own ways, come and live close to one another. The question's not will there be conflict, it's whether or not you'll engage it in a way that's healthy. Number 3, this one I'm pretty embarrassed of, but I didn't want to shade the truth from y'all. Massaging the truth to persuade. I'm pretty embarrassed of this one. I'm embarrassed because this one is more intentional. And here's what I mean by massaging the truth. I don't mean ever outright lying. I mean identifying the 10% of what's true that I think people could understand and saying that 10% until I could get them ready for the next 10%. Why? I'm deeply insecure about me as a leader, me as a pastor, me as a husband, me as a father. And so the solution is let's shade some stuff. And eventually that just leaves the people around you feeling manipulated. Number 4, youthful and unholy ambition. Number 5, speaking definitively without the maturity to be sensitive and gentle. About a year and a half ago, I got a message from somebody on Facebook that said, Brandon, you probably don't remember this conversation that we had. It was back in Dallas. It was in this part of the sanctuary. And I just wanted you to know I've hated you for 15 years, but I forgive you now. But here's the deal. I remember every word of that conversation. He was a wounded brother who came asking a pastoral question that's very real life. And I spouted off what I thought John Piper thought because I didn't know what I actually thought. And I left that brother wounded. There's my top 5. I know you have yours. I know you have your top 5, your top 3, your top 7 too. Unfortunately for me, and fortunately for you, the psalm doesn't end with, see if there's any grievous way in me. If it did, with my track record, despair is where I land. But here's how it ended. See if there be any grievous way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. Lead me in the way everlasting. How do these statements go together? Show me what's grievous. Lead me in the way everlasting. How do these come together? Well, the answer is that they really don't. Until you see that everything grievous in you is a grief borne by Jesus on the cross. Until you see this coming together in Isaiah 53, surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows. Yet we esteemed him stricken, smitten by God and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was a chastisement that brought us peace. And with his wounds we are healed. Now what is grievous in you, what is grievous in me, designed by God to lead you to Jesus, the one whose wounds heal. Jesus, the wounded healer, the nail-pierced Savior, the shame forgiver, the friend of sinners, that no one loves me like you do. With Jesus as your way everlasting, embracing and seeing your failures can actually be soil for maturity and growth. It can be soil for repentance and forgiveness and sanctification, for seeing yourself through the lens of Jesus. It can free you up to sing the Enneagram 3 song. Y'all know what the Enneagram is? I'm not rehashing it in the conclusion. Enneagram is a personality profile, and there's a list of songs written about each of the 9. I'm a 3. Here's the song. If I haven't told you this before, the first time I heard this song, I was walking down 26th Street in Houston, Texas. There's a line in the song that says, maybe these trophies aren't real love, and I instantly started sobbing. Because what do you mean? That's how I knew you loved me when I was a kid. You handed me a trophy. But here's how the song ends. But I'm slowly learning how to break the spell and finally see myself. Now I only want to feel what's real, to let my heart feel what it feels. I only want what's real. I set aside the highlight reel and leave my greatest failures on display with an asterisk, worthy of love anyway. You and I, you are going to fail. Failure is an inescapable reality, and the way through it is be so gripped by the love of Jesus that you know on your darkest day, you are beloved. You are beloved. And that in that day when you are doing what you are most ashamed of, it does not mean that He is pleased with what you are doing, but you are still His beloved. You are still His son. You are still His daughter. When you look at what is grievous in you through the lens of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection, it is possible for your biggest fumbles and your deepest failures to be soil for which deeper love of Jesus and enjoyment of the church and your brothers and your sisters can grow. Let's pray.